Hey there, I'm Rob and I'm 45 years old. Recently, I got caught up in some drama with my ex-wife and how she has been treating our daughter, and honestly, I had no clue about it. Let me rewind all the way back to how it all began about 20 years ago. Time sure flies. Looking back, it all started around 20 years ago when Marianne and I first met at a bar. I had just achieved my airline transport pilot license and I was celebrating. The moment I laid eyes on Marianne, I was already in love. It was like magic, and I thought she was the one from the get-go. We hit it off instantly, started dating, met each other's families, and everything just fell into place. 2 years later, I was 27, she was 25, when we said, I do. The proposal was for books. It was very private, but it meant a lot to us. I whisked her away on a sweet picnic, and as the day turned to night, we were stargazing with a bottle of wine. That's when I popped the big question, and she said yes. Not long after our marriage, Marianne became pregnant with our first child, Joe, just a month into our marriage. That's when I was already up in the skies as a pilot. I admit I've been an absent dad for a big part of my life. Marianne took on the role of a stay-at-home mom while I was flying all over the place, doing my pilot thing. Before we got married, flying was something Marianne and I enjoyed together. However, as our family grew, circumstances changed and my absence became more pronounced. My flying schedule limited the time we could spend together, and I regret not being more present during those crucial moments of Joe's upbringing. Back when I had more time before taking on a full-time job, Marianne and I were inseparable. We would go flying together once in a while, cherishing those thrilling moments in the sky, and we had a blast doing other couple stuff as well. But when the job and our son Joe came into the picture, things got a bit tricky. My pilot gig had me away from home way too much, and I knew it was tough on Marianne. Still, whenever I managed to be home, we made it count, man. We'd plan romantic dates, call up a babysitter, and just have a great time together. But looking back, I do regret not being there as much for Joe. Those classic father-son moments, like teaching him to ride a bike or shoot hoops, just slipped through our fingers. Joe was into football, and even attending his football games became a rarity due to my busy work schedule. It seriously bummed him out because football meant a lot to him. But then the heavens smiled upon us and little Dorothea, or Dottie, entered our lives. However, during that time, I could see that Marianne wasn't doing so well emotionally, and I totally understood why. I mean, she was practically a one-woman show raising the kids while I was out flying all over the place. While she was just a tiny tot, I lucked out and managed to switch to part-time work, which gave me more time to spend with Marianne and the kids. Marianne and I patched things up, and it felt like we were reliving our wild 20s all over again. It was a frickin' happy time. During those part-time work years, I soaked up every moment with Dottie, and it was awesome. But I couldn't help but notice that Joe had grown distant from me. I chalked it up to the typical teenage hormones and didn't dwell on it too much. Then came the time when I needed to go back to full-time work, mainly because I was the sole earner in the family. With the kids getting older, I wanted to support them, especially Joe, who would be heading to college soon. I felt a strong urge to compensate for the times I couldn't be there for him, and one way I thought of doing that was by helping out with his college tuition. Little did I know that this time, when I left for work, things wouldn't be the same when I got back home. I had just gotten home from a long flight, taken a refreshing shower, and had dinner with the kids. Then Marianne and I headed upstairs after wishing the little ones good night, and that's when she dropped a bombshell on me. I want a divorce. Whoa! That came out of nowhere. Really, Rob, it's been 17 years. I do not even recognize you anymore. I don't know the book on your nightstand. It used to be our thing, right? We hardly talk. The person I knew seems to have vanished. Every time you come home, I welcome you with open arms, but all you do is talk about your flights. I listen and then I tell you about the kids. It's like we've lost the us in all of this. I feel like I'm just a bored housewife now. If it's all in my head, tell me now. Tell me if I'm wrong. No, you're not wrong. I've let things slip, and I'm sorry for not being the person I promised to be. It's not your fault, but I can't keep holding back anymore. I haven't found someone new, but I won't lie. I thought about it. I've been trying to keep things together for the sake of the kids, but I can't do it anymore. I understand. I'm sorry, Marianne. If you want the divorce to happen, I won't stand in your way. After the separation, Marianne and I agreed that joint custody would be best for the kids. And it made sense for them to live with her since she knew them better. I was like a stranger in their lives. Surprisingly, the divorce didn't hit me as hard as I thought. Don't get me wrong, I was devastated, but I guess being away all the time had already killed the love between us. I still had respect for Marianne, though. After all, she's the mother of my kids, and I miss those little munchkins like crazy. Marianne and I completely lost touch after the divorce. Our only communication was about child support. I relied on the kids to fill me in on how things are going with her and how they were managing at their grandparents' place. I felt bad for them, honestly. I even offered to help Marianne find a place to rent, but she turned it down. Eventually, during one of their visits, the kids dropped the bombshell that they had moved in with Marianne's new boyfriend, Matthew. I guess it was bound to happen sooner or later, but I just hoped the guy treated Marianne and the kids well. I wanted to talk to her about it, but she wouldn't respond when I brought it up. The weird thing was the kids became really quiet ever since they moved in with him. It was kind of off-putting, but I didn't think much of it until Joe left for college. I helped him out with college tuition, and he was grateful for that. With Joe gone, I had to pick up Dottie from Marianne's new place, or rather her new boyfriend Matthew's place. And let me tell you, that dude gave me a sketchy vibe. First time I saw where they lived, I was like, whoa. No judgment or anything, but it wasn't the best place, and I couldn't believe Marianne went for a guy like that. When I went to pick up Dottie, Marianne opened the door. Seeing her after so long was like a blast from the past. She looked different, all troubled and stuff. She was wearing a robe, looking pale and skinny, and, no offense, kind of old. Something seemed off. Hey, how's it going? I'm okay. Yeah, cool. So this is Matthew's place? Yep. I've been seeing him for a while now. Dorothea, can you hurry up and leave already? That is when I heard Matthew calling out for Dottie, and it felt like he was screaming at her. I did not like the dude for talking to my daughter like that. It just did not sit right with me. And with all of Marianne's short replies, something definitely seemed off. She had never been this quiet in her life. It was like she had lost her spark. She looked tired even more when she was with me. It made me wonder what was going on in her life and if everything was okay. I took Dottie with me and we had an awesome evening. We watched her favorite movie, The Princess Diaries, for like the 10th time while munching on Takis, but hey, I was not complaining. I was just so happy to be spending time with my daughter. For dinner, we ordered pizza and then we indulged in Ben & Jerry's cookie dough ice cream for dessert. During our little dinner chat, I tried to get to know more about this Matthew character. So, does Matthew treat your mother right? Yeah. Well, is he nice to you? Yeah. That's good, kiddo. You know, you can always tell me if you have any problems. Your daddy's always here to protect you no matter what. Okay, Dad. Then I asked her about school. How's school going? I don't want to lie to you, and I need to come clean about something. I don't go to school anymore. Mom told me to keep it a secret from you. She pulled me out of school and said I could continue next year. Dad, please don't tell Mom that I told you. You don't understand. It would just get me into bigger trouble. Are you in trouble, sweetheart? Is everything okay? Yeah, I mean, everything's fine, but please just Don't tell Mom. Dottie, I really need to understand why your mom would keep this from me. Not going to school and taking a gap year is a big deal. I'm really worried about you and I want to make sure everything's okay. I know, Dad, but Mom said she's handling everything and she didn't want you to get involved. I was taken aback by the whole situation. I could not wrap my head around what was happening with Marianne. Even though I promised Dottie not to say anything, I needed to understand why she wasn't sending her to school. Dottie was on the verge of starting middle school, and missing out on those crucial years felt really concerning to me. I mean, I'm providing financial support, so what could be the reason holding Marianne back? Initially, I thought about asking Joe for some insights, but I didn't want to burden him with our family issues. He has his own life now, and I didn't want to disturb that. With a couple of flights lined up for the week, I decided to wait until I got back to talk to Marianne about it. I asked Dottie to go to bed early and dropped her off at Matthew's place the next day before heading to the airport. A few days later, I finally landed my flight for the week and had the weekend off. It had been ages since I had a weekend to myself, and I was stoked about it. When I got home, my phone started ringing, and guess who it was? Marianne. But when I picked up, it was Dottie on the line. Hey, Dad. Hey, baby girl, what's up? Is everything fine? Why are you calling from your mom's phone? Yeah, Dad, please send $3,000 for new school books. Wait a minute, didn't we talk about school yesterday? You told me Mom pulled you out of school. Marianne took over the phone. Dorothea needs money for some new books. It's $3,000. I knew Marianne wasn't sending Dottie to school. Feeling exhausted and frustrated, the fact that Marianne would hide something like this from me and then lie to my face made me snap. I couldn't hold back my anger any longer. What's the money really for, Marianne? I've been sending you child support all this time, and now I find out Dottie isn't even going to school? What's happening here? Where is all the money going? Oh my God, I'm just going to talk to you later. And then she just hung up the phone on me. I kept calling, but no one answered. It was way too late at night, and I was dead tired. I still had to pick up Dottie for the weekend, though, so I decided to tackle the conversation the next day. I couldn't help but feel mad and suspicious, though. What on earth was Marianne hiding from me? I only wanted what was best for my daughter's education, and it was bugging me big time. Wondering where all the money I had been sending her had gone. It was around 1 in the morning when the phone started ringing. I picked it up, and to my surprise, it was Dottie. She was crying, and I immediately got worried. What had happened to make her so upset? Dad, can you come pick me up, please? Are you okay? What is going on? Where's your mom? Where's Matthew? Mom doesn't know I'm talking to you. She's probably sleeping in her bedroom with Matthew right now. Just be here and call me when you're outside. Don't worry, I'm coming. I could sense the fear and distress in Dottie's voice, and my heart sank. I told her to stay put, and I dashed out to pick her up, my mind racing with all sorts of worries about what was happening. I drove like a maniac to their place, not wasting any time. I called Dottie, and she tiptoed out the door like a ninja. This meant that Marianne had no idea that I was here. I gave Dottie a big hug as soon as she got into my car, and we didn't talk at all during the drive back home. Once we got home, I got her settled on the couch and told her to make herself comfortable. I grabbed her a glass of water, trying to ease the nerves and worry that she must have been feeling. Sweetie, you've got to be honest with me if you want me to help you out here. Okay, Dad. When Mom and Matthew found out that I told you about them pulling me out of school, they went ballistic. Mom started chucking stuff at me. What? She threw things at you? Yeah, it was like a crazy storm in there. And Matthew was yelling at me, saying all these awful things, like I'm worthless and should just disappear. What? Your mom has completely lost it. Mom said we're having some money problems and things are going downhill fast at home. What do you mean, sweetheart? We've been scraping by, Dad. It's been rough. We're having cereal for dinner. How long has this been going on for? Joe never mentioned any of this to me. Since Joe left for college. I couldn't believe what my daughter was telling me at first. It was just so hard to wrap my head around the idea that Marianne, I knew, who had always been a good mom, could do something like this. Joe never complained about her, and yeah, she could be strict, but never abusive. But here's Dottie claiming that Marianne slapped her and threw stuff at her, while that dude, Matthew, was spewing nasty, hurtful words at her like she was some piece of trash. My blood was boiling with anger and worry for my little girl. After putting Dottie to bed, I poured myself a drink and sat down feeling terrible. It hit me hard, thinking it was all my fault. If only I had been there for my wife and kids right from the start, maybe things wouldn't have turned out like this. Marianne had apparently gone off the rails, and now my kids were suffering because of it. It broke my heart to think they might carry trauma from all this. Hearing what Dottie went through that day made me wonder what else Joe had kept hidden from me. I had so many questions swirling in my head. Why was Marianne acting like this? What caused her to change into someone unrecognizable? Had my absence turned Marianne into a monster? The next day, I asked Dorothea to stay home and headed over to Marianne and Matthew's place. I was so furious that I feared I might actually punch that guy for what he said to my daughter. I knocked on their door, and Matthew answered. We were expecting you. Where did you take Dorothea? She's my daughter, and it's none of your business where she is. Where's Marianne? I stepped inside the house. Marianne was there, sitting on the couch, sobbing uncontrollably. I was so puzzled, I just needed the truth at this point. Oh my God, just start talking, Marianne. Why have you been behaving this way? You laid a hand on our daughter. Where has all the money been going? And you, Matthew? I've heard stuff about you too. How dare you? Marianne had known me for a long time, and she knew I didn't lose my temper easily, but when I did, it wasn't any good for anyone. Rob, I'm so sorry. I messed up big time. You see, Matthew's in serious debt and he owes a lot of money to someone. Initially, we used to take a chunk out of the child support checks you sent to pay off the debt collectors. But recently, they've been breathing down our necks, demanding the full amount. So we had no choice but to send it all to them. And I love Matthew. I was just trying to protect him. That's why I made Dottie take a gap year. You didn't care about our daughter, did you? All you cared about was protecting Matthew, someone who clearly doesn't deserve any of it. You put him above your own child, and for what? Do you realize what you've done? I'm sorry. You know, Matthew, I've tried to give you the benefit of the doubt, but I can't ignore the truth any longer. You're nothing but a loser. You're a grown man living off my child support money, and for what? What do you even do all day? I'm working on some things, all right? Working on what? Scamming people and leeching off my ex-wife? Is that your grand plan? Look, it's not as simple as you think. It's pretty simple, actually. You're a deadbeat, living off someone else's hard work. You can't even provide for yourself, let alone Marianne. And Marianne, you will be hearing from my lawyer soon. When I got back home, I knew I had to dig deep and find out if Joe was holding anything back. I hadn't been the perfect dad, but now it was my chance to step up and be there for them. I could tell my kids felt let down by their mom's actions, so I had a heart-to-heart with Joe. Marianne had been nagging him verbally, but at least he didn't face any physical abuse. That gave me more reason to take action and protect my kids. I consulted my lawyer, and together we took the matter to the authorities, shedding light on the abuse and neglect my children had endured. And guess what? I finally won the legal battle and got full custody of my kids. Marianne tried to beg her way out of it, but the court wasn't buying it. She lost custody and visitation rights. As for Matthew, my gut feeling about him was right. It turned out he had a criminal record for breaking and entering, leading to his imprisonment for a year. I've retired from flying and moved into a role in management and mentorship, all with the sole purpose of being there for my daughter and son this time. I want to make up for lost time and create a loving and supportive environment for them. My kids are my priority, and I'll do whatever it takes to give them a safe and loving home. I want them to know that they can count on their dad, and I'll never let them down again. We got a long road to heal, but I'm going to be the best dad I can be.